I opened my lake cabin door on a Friday afternoon to find a teenager in mirrored sunglasses holding a Bluetooth speaker and a six-pack of White Claw. The kid couldn't have been older than 17, with a man bun that defied gravity and a vape pen tucked behind his ear like a pencil. "You got to leave," he said, adjusting his sunglasses despite standing in the shade of my porch. "Mom said I can use this place for my graduation rager. You've had it for long enough." I blinked twice, certain I misheard him. "Excuse me. You're serious?" The teen smirked, revealing a set of freshly whitened teeth. "You should have our SVPD to the HOA party list, dude. Now it's my turn." I studied him for a moment, taking in the supreme confidence that only comes from never facing real consequences. "And your mother is Brenda Fitzgerald, HOA president. She runs this whole place." He gestured vaguely at the surrounding woods. "So yeah, you need to clear out by 6. We've got a DJ coming." 30 minutes later, his party was broken up by 8 squad cars, 2 K9 units, and 1 boat patrol. Because I wasn't just the cabin's owner. I was Chief Daniel Morrison of the Silver Ridge County Police Department, and this kid had just made the biggest mistake of his young life. Let me back up a bit. I'd purchased this lakeside cabin in Pine Valley Estates 3 years ago. After my divorce, it was my sanctuary. A place where I could fish, read, and avoid the stress of running a police department. Pine Valley was a gated HOA community known for its strict rules about everything from mailbox colors to the acceptable brands of bird feeders. I'd specifically chosen a cabin on the far edge of the property, nestled between towering pines and overlooking Crystal Lake. It was private, peaceful, and most importantly, nobody knew who I was. To my neighbors, I was just Dan, the quiet guy who kept to himself and always brought his trash cans in on time. Enter Brenda Fitzgerald, HOA president, self-proclaimed community organizer, and mother to Tyler, the entitled teenager currently trying to commandeer my property. Brenda was the type who measured grass height with a ruler and sent violation notices for wind chimes that were too melodic. I managed to stay off her radar until Tyler discovered my cabin while paddle boarding with his friends. Apparently, he decided it was the perfect venue for what he called his senior send-off, and his mother had agreed, citing some nonsense about community property utilization. The email started 2 weeks before the confrontation. First came the subtle approach. Brenda wrote asking if I was done enjoying my cabin for the season, suggesting it might be nice to share the lakefront blessing with younger community members. I politely declined, explaining that I use the cabin year-round. Her next email was less subtle. She claimed the HOA board was considering a new community cabin rotation policy that would require lakefront property owners to make their homes available for approved community events. She even attached a poorly formatted document that looked like it was made in Microsoft Paint. I ignored it, figuring she'd give up. That was my first mistake. The following week, I received a formal-looking letter on HOA letterhead, informing me that my cabin had been selected for the June Youth Appreciation Weekend. Tyler's graduation party was listed as the inaugural event. The letter was signed by Brenda and 2 other board members I'd never heard of. I responded with a firm but professional email, citing actual property law and explaining that private property within an HOA remained private property. I thought that would end it. Instead, Tyler started showing up at my cabin when I wasn't there. My trail camera caught him taking selfies on my dock, posing with my kayak, and even trying to jimmy the lock on my shed. He posted these photos on social media, with captions like "scouting the venue" and "this place about to be lit." On Thursday night, Brenda called me directly. Her voice had that fake sweet tone that meant trouble. "Dan, I really think you're being unreasonable. The children of this community deserve to celebrate their achievements. Surely you remember being young." "I remember respecting other people's property," I said, keeping my tone neutral despite my growing irritation. She sighed dramatically. "Well, I tried to do this the nice way. That the HOA has broad powers when it comes to community wellness. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Are you threatening me, Brenda?" "I'm simply informing you of your obligations as a member of this community." She hung up before I could respond. That brings us back to Friday afternoon. I'd taken a half-day off work to come check on my cabin, having a bad feeling about Brenda's threat. Good thing I did. When I pulled up, I found my gate open, my lock cut, and plastic tiki torches stuck haphazardly around my property. Inside was even worse. Tyler and his friends had transformed my living room into party central. Neon lights were strung from the ceiling. A beer pong table dominated the space, and someone had taped glow sticks to my mounted bass. My kitchen was full of red Solo cups, bags of chips, and enough alcohol to stock a small bar. The kid was even wearing my lucky fishing hat, the one my grandfather had given me. After Tyler informed me I needed to leave my own property, I stepped onto the porch and made a call. "Hey, Richardson, it's Morrison. I need you to send units to my cabin at Pine Valley. We've got a B&E in progress. Underage drinking and possible theft." Full response. "On it, Chief. Want us to keep it low-key?" I looked at Tyler, who was now doing a TikTok dance on my deck. "Negative. Light them up." 20 minutes later, the woods erupted with sirens. Squad cars poured down the narrow lake road, lights flashing, sirens wailing. The music cut off abruptly as teenagers scattered like roaches when the light comes on. Tyler tried to run but tripped over his own flip-flops. He attempted to hide in my canoe but forgot canoe's float, and he ended up drifting into the middle of the lake where Officer Martinez was waiting in the department's boat. "I want my mom," Tyler yelled as he was helped into the boat, soaking wet and suddenly far less confident. "Don't worry," Martinez said cheerfully. "We're calling her right now." Brenda arrived 15 minutes later in her white Range Rover, horn blaring as she demanded officers move their vehicles. She emerged wearing yoga pants and a Live Laugh Love t-shirt, her face already red with indignation. "What is the meaning of this?" she shrieked, marching toward the nearest officer. "This is HOA-sanctioned event. I demand you leave immediately." I stepped out from behind one of the squad cars, now in full uniform. I'd kept my chief's uniform in my cabin closet for emergencies, and this definitely qualified. Brenda's face went from red to white in record time. But you said you were." "I said I worked for the county," I reminded her. "I just never specify in what capacity." "This is entrapment," she sputtered. "You lied about your identity." "No. I just didn't advertise it. Unlike your son, who advertised his break-in on social media." I held up my phone, showing screenshots of Tyler's posts. He even tagged the location. Officer Chen approached with Tyler in handcuffs. The kid looked considerably less confident now, his man bun drooping and his designer sunglasses askew. "Mom, tell them about the community property thing," Tyler pleaded. Brenda tried to rally. "The HOA has an easement on all lakefront properties for community use." "Really?" I pulled out my phone again. "Because I have the actual HOA bylaws here and I don't see anything about property seizure. I do see the part about respecting neighbors' property rights, though." Lieutenant Walker, who'd been documenting the alcohol found in the cabin, joined us. "Chief, we've got enough beer and hard liquor here for about 100 minors." The kid had a spreadsheet with cover charges. He was planning to make bank off this party. "That's entrepreneurship," Brenda protested weakly. "That's contributing to the delinquency of minors," I corrected. "And since you knew about it and facilitated it by threatening me, that makes you an accessory." "I want a lawyer." "Great idea. You'll need one for the criminal charges, and probably for the civil suit. I'll be filing for the damage to my property." I gestured to my poor mounted base still cover in glow sticks. "That fish was caught by my father in 1987. The crowd of neighbors that had gathered to watch the drama unfold started murmuring. I heard someone say, "I told you Brenda was going too far." And another, "Wait until the rest of the board hears about this." Tyler was placed in the back of a squad car to be transported for booking. He'd be charged with breaking and entering, criminal trespass, underage drinking, and theft. That last one for my grandfather's hat, which was thankfully recovered. Brenda was issued citations for enabling trespass and contributing to the delinquency of minors. As Officer Chen handed her the tickets, she kept insisting this was all a misunderstanding. "The real misunderstanding," I said, "was thinking you could bully people into giving up their property rights and using your minor son to commit crimes. That's going to look great at the next HOA meeting." Word spread through Pine Valley estates like wildfire. By Saturday morning, an emergency HOA board meeting had been called. I attended in full uniform, bringing with me a flash drive of security footage from my cabin's hidden cameras. The meeting was held in the community center and it was standing room only. Brenda sat at the board table flanked by her two allies, who suddenly seemed very interested in studying their phones. "I call this meeting to order," Brenda said weakly, her usual commanding tone completely absent. "Motioned to add an item to the agenda," called out Robert Jameson, a retired attorney who lived near the golf course. "Discussion of the president's recent criminal activities." "That's not how this works," Brenda protested. "Actually," Robert said, pulling out his own copy of the bylaws. Section 12.4 states that any board member facing criminal charges must immediately step down pending resolution of the case. Those are just citations, Brenda argued. I stood up. Would the board like to see the security footage of the president's son breaking into my cabin? Or perhaps the text messages where she threatened to use HOA powers to force me out? The room erupted. Neighbors I'd never spoken to started sharing their own stories of Brenda's overreach. Apparently, she tried to find someone for having the wrong shade of beige curtains and had attempted to ban bird feeders because they attracted undesirable wildlife. Motion to remove Brenda Fitzgerald as HOA president, someone called out. Second, came from multiple voices. The vote was swift and unanimous, except for Brenda herself. Even her two allies voted against her, probably hoping to save their own positions. You can't do this. Brenda stood up, knocking over her chair. I've been president for 5 years. This community needs me. What this community needs, Robert said calmly, is leadership that respects the law and its residents. Brenda grabbed her purse and stormed toward the exit, then turned back for one last comment. You'll all regret this when your property values plummet. The only thing plummeting, I said, is your son's college prospects after his arrest record. She slammed the door so hard the welcome sign fell off. The next few weeks were eventful. Tyler ended up pleading to misdemeanor charges and got 6 months probation, 100 hours of community service, and had to pay me $2,000 in restitution for property damage. The judge also ordered him to write a 5-page essay on property rights. Brenda faced her own legal troubles. The contributing to delinquency charge stuck, resulting in steep fines and mandatory parenting classes. Several homeowners also filed civil suits against her for various HOA abuses discovered during the investigation into my case. The criminal charges cost her job at a local real estate firm where she'd been using her HOA position to steer clients toward Pine Valley Estates for the commission. Her real estate license was suspended pending an ethics investigation. But the real blow came when the new HOA board conducted a forensic audit of the books. Turns out Brenda had been using HOA funds for personal expenses, disguising them as community improvements. Those vision board retreats she'd organized, they were spa weekends for her and her friends. She was hit with embezzlement charges, a Class D felony carrying up to 5 years in prison. At her arraignment, she tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that she'd planned to pay it back. The judge wasn't impressed. Mrs. Fitzgerald, you stole $47,000 over 3 years. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a pattern. She was released on bail pending trial, but the damage was done. Her Range Rover was repossessed. Her house went on the market, and Tyler had to transfer to public school his senior year. I saw her one last time at the grocery store. She was wearing sweatpants and no makeup, a far cry from her usual perfectly coordinated outfits. When she saw me, she turned to go down another aisle, then stopped. I hope you're happy, she said, her voice bitter. You destroy my life over a stupid party. No, Brenda, I reply. You destroy your life with your choices. I just refuse to be one of your victims. She started to respond, then seemed to deflate. 5 years, she whispered. My lawyer says I'm looking at 5 years. I felt a moment of pity for her, then remembered the $47,000 she'd stolen from her neighbors, the businesses she'd harassed with bogus fines, the people like me she tried to bully. Actions have consequences, I said simply, and continued with my shopping. The trial concluded last month. Brenda Fitzgerald was convicted of embezzlement and sentenced to 3 years in state prison, with 2 years suspended. She served 1 year, followed by 5 years of probation and mandatory restitution to the HOA. Tyler watched his mother get led away in handcuffs, finally understanding that actions have consequences. The entitled teenager who tried to steal my cabin was gone, replaced by a subdued young man who now works at a local hardware store to pay his restitution. As for me, I still have my cabin now equipped with better locks and more security cameras. The new HOA board is much more reasonable, focused on actual community improvement rather than power trips. They even apologized for the previous administration's behavior and offered to pay for my damaged property from the recovered embezzled funds. I declined, satisfied with Tyler's restitution and the simple pleasure of peace and quiet. Sometimes I sit on my dock, fishing rod in hand. And think about how differently things might have gone if Brenda had just respected the word no, but she didn't. And now she's learning about property rights the hard way from a 6x8 cell, where nobody cares that she used to be HOA president. Her tears, and the judge announced 3 years, were the last thing anyone saw before the bailiffs led her away.